Hi, welcome to the Shower Doctor HQ. This is our first attempt at doing some live streaming. The reason for this is that we can try and answer some of the questions directly and probably a bit more in detail than we could normally do, say, on a video or even by email. That what you may hear in the background occasionally is Lucas, who's the technical guy behind this. I can answer the questions in Shower, but it's him that keeps us up to date with the technology. So if you want to ask us a question, you can use chat or our Facebook page, and if you're on Twitter, then our hashtag is hashtag AskTheDoc. So you're welcome to try and do that anytime you like. I'm looking forward to seeing some questions. Send us your questions now. On the invitation, I showed you this thing. It's a thing called a thermal cutout, a TCO. Some manufacturers call it a thermal switch, but every electric shower has one of these, and it's an interesting bit of kit because what it is they're all now a two-stage thing, and what happens if the shower starts to overheat, what it does is it cuts out the electricity to the elements, and the shower will then start to cool down. When it cools down, it resets itself, a really interesting thing. But if that happens too often, or the shower gets very, very hot, then it'll cut out completely, and basically you'll need to replace it. If it flicks on and off too many times, it'll need to be replaced as well. And the reason for that is that because you need to replace it, it means somebody's got to look at the shower. It also means that something fairly serious has normally gone wrong inside the shower. And as I say, it's a two-stage thing. First stage, it'll reset. If it goes to the second stage, it's really, when it resets, probably, I'm thinking high 40 degrees, it depends, different manufacturers use different temperatures, but it'll burn you, but not seriously. And if it gets high, if it gets much hotter than that, then as I say, the thing cuts out and you've really got to have the shower checked out properly. It's because it's two-stage that when it cuts out for the second time, the temptation when you buy one of these is that, I don't know if you could hear that very well, but it clicks beautifully, and it's a real effective clicker, but the first time you click it is the last time it will work. Basically, once that's clicked, that's it, it's finished. So if you buy a new one, you must keep your fingers away from the disc at the bottom. It's fairly robust. This is an old one, so I can click it away as much as I like, and if you're changing them, you've then, when you've got the old one, you've got a clicker. But whatever you do when you're fitting this, be very careful to make sure that you don't click the disc in the bottom. We've got a video that shows you how this works and how to test it, but very briefly, the power comes in at one side and comes out at the other. If you only have power at one side, then you've got a faulty TCO. So all electric showers have these, slightly different, but they all have more or less the same thing. So I'm now going to have a look and see if we've got any questions that have come in. Let me see. Well, there's nothing yet on our live feed, so I'll go to some of the ones that we've been asked before, and just let's have a look. This is people, I've got one or two here, but it's mostly people thanking us, and for right, big button in a galaxy. Now these are turning the water outside. He's turning the water off outside at the meter. Here we go. That from audio sound. I have a Myra 415 and it's dripping in the closed position. Really, what the problem with this is the Myra 415 is a shower that's usually connected to the mains. It's high pressure. It's a pressure balancing shower. You get them quite often used in combi boilers. Good shower. Very technical way the valve works internally, and so that if the pressure on the hot or cold changes, the pressure on the opposite side changes also to keep it very steady. It's a fairly small cartridge that fits into the shower, and it is, frankly, it's a DIY job to replace it. You need to turn the water off and get the small cartridge. I should have perhaps had one if I had known I was going to look at this. but I could have had a look at this cartridge, and it just really slips into the shower, and that will stop it dripping. They worked up to about 5 bar. Once they get beyond 5 bar, then they become difficult. You have problems with them dripping then. The best pressure to have them, if you've got pressure reducing valve, set the pressure reducing valve for about 3 bar. That's pretty good advice for most showers. 3 bars about as much pressure as you want. Let's see if we've got anything else back here. You'll have to give me a minute. I'm not terribly quick with this. You know, YouTube. Right, let's go down and try some more. What I'll do is I'll have a look at the Twitter feed, see if there's anything there. There's nothing on Twitter at the moment. I'll go back and look for some more comments, see if I can pick up something else here. Yeah, somebody asking about an Aqualisa quartz shower, Mark Berry, and it says the LED buttons on the shower aren't working. Now, quartz for Aqualisa is actually a range. The LED buttons, let me see, the LED buttons aren't working. Can you reset the controller? This sounds like the one that's got the power pack that you keep it, that's in the attic. The problem with these is, frankly, they're not DIY repairable. If they're dripping, you can take them and grease the washers and put the washers back in. In truth, Aqualisa do a really good one with the unit in the attic. Then that's the sensible thing to do. Just phone Aqualisa and get them to replace it, because you get the guarantee, and it's just the best way to go about it. Let's look, see if we've got anything else. Nothing yet. Glasses on. Go back down here and see if we can find some more. We've got Catherine Slater, who's asking about fitting reducers onto the shower. That she's got 3/4 inlet pipes and she wants to change it to 1/2-inch fittings. It's Katrina. Katrina, I'm afraid that there's nothing we can do about that. That some of the older showers, to help with the flow, had 3/4 inlet pipes. Nowadays, really, you would only find 3/4 22mm pipes on fairly old showers. Everything now is 15mm, unless you're getting to the really high volume showers, ones with body sprays and the sort of rain heads at the top, sort of really big powerful things. So they're not normal. They tend to be at the very expensive end of the market. And by the sound of your question, it looks like what you're really asking is that, as a replacement, probably if this is tiled in, you're probably going to have to break up a couple of the tiles and join the pipes and reduce them and bring them in so you can get them to the right size. That we've had this kind of problem before, and in terms of just a little tip, that what we've done in the past is, if we've had to break in a very expensive and really fancy tiles, what we've been able to do is go to a sheet metal worker and get a sheet of polished stainless steel, which looks like chrome, and whatever size you've had to dig out the wall to get into the pipes, you can get a chrome plated square, stainless steel square, and have that made to the same size, and it fits over. So it tends to look as if it's part of the job. You've got this nice chrome plated plate, and it's not ideal, but it's much better than having to retile the bathroom. Have another look, see what we've got. Back through some more here. We've got Laura Bailey was asking about fitting a new rail, shower rail, a riser rail in the bracket and what have you, and she was asking the best way to do it. Well, often with an older shower you can't get the exact same bracket and rail. We do have, in fact, sort of rail kits that come, and it's entirely adjustable, so what you can do is you can the screws will fit the way the pole fits to the wall, so the screws will fit. That one of the other things to do is if you're really just changing the sliding bracket, you'll often find that it's easier to undo the top screw because it's not been in the water. If it's going to rust at all, the screw in the top of the bracket is the one to go for. Undo the top of the bracket, slide the old slider off, pop the new one on, and then you should be able to screw the top one straight back in. It just makes it that much easier. I'll have a look for something else.
Check out the chat, George.
Check out the
Chat.
chat. Back to chat. What's my favourite TV show? I don't know. I'm quite liking Bear Grylls just now, and I should mention it's the Micro Battalion, right? So yeah, I'm enjoying the Bear Grylls thing at the moment with the old folk, which I can identify with, and the younger guys. So at the moment, that's it. At my change from time to time, I have loved this season of Homeland. Homeland's been just incredible, and the last episode was made you, well, I don't know, if you're watching it then you'll understand, but if you've not been watching it, I just thought that was powerful television. That and maybe The Last Kingdom, I've been enjoying that as well. So but yeah, that's not helping too many folk with showers, but good question. So thanks Micro. I'll look at this, what else we've got here. Try back to Twitter. Try and see, it says it's really, what I am interested in is I look at our Twitter and Facebook feeds, and usually we get the questions we get are usually by email, or we've got a Q&A page on our website as well. You can see the other people's questions, which is quite useful. That the thing is just looking through these tonight, is that most of them that I can see are people thanking us for the videos and for the advice that we've given. So perhaps I should have prepared this a little bit earlier and looked to see if there was anything that was more interesting. There's somebody that we've got an answer for someone here let me see, Mike Jarvis, and that when we get questions, people are often asking us about the internal parts of the shower. One of the things that's really valuable to us, whether it's a Q&A or whether it's an email, that what's really important is if we can have photos. If we can get photos of your shower valve, that even if you don't know what it is, that our guys in here are pretty well switched on to that. We've got a huge library with thousands of showers in, so we can then compare them. What would be best if you can send us a photograph of the outside of the shower, then one with the knobs removed and that sort of thing. If it's a water shower, if it's oh dear, my brain's going here. If it's just an ordinary shower, then we can then identify perhaps the cartridge that fits into the shower just by seeing the end of the cartridge. And occasionally it's best if we can get a picture of the complete cartridge. Yeah, I've got one here. This is the sort of thing that goes into a shower that's connected to your hot and cold water. So it's something like this, and you have the hot and cold feeds that go into the cartridge. And basically what we do is, if we can see something like this, we can compare it with what we've got in stock and then work out what cartridge you've got. We can't guarantee them all, but we have, I think around 500 different cartridges either in stock or that are available to us. So there's a fairly good chance of being able to pick something up. But photographs are the answer, because often what we've got to do is just send an email back saying, can you send a photograph? So the easy thing to do is send us a photograph to begin with, and then we're halfway there. I'll look back at this again. Leave these on.
Another question from the chat?
Another question in chat. Okay, here we go. Where can well, Micro Battalion again is asking where he can buy a good shower. Well, here obviously. We're quite fortunate that we've got good contacts with most of the manufacturers, and that we can, in most cases, match the prices that you get in B&Q and Screwfix and these kind of places. I've got to be honest and say we can't do that all the time, but if we're not far away, if you look at the price and we're not far away, give us a ring, because, well, we sometimes can manage to do something, and we often get the manufacturers coming to us and just asking us if we will take 100 showers or whatever, and then we get a really good price and we pass that on to the customer. It does us good, it does the customer good, it does the manufacturer good. It's a good system. So if you're looking for a shower, certainly check our website. We are as competitive as anyone else.
One more?
Yeah, and I've also been asked by Micro Battalion if we ship to the US. We ship all over the world. I think the only place that we won't ship at the moment is I think Ghana, that we shipped I think 20 showers there a few years ago, that we were supposed to have had the money and then they didn't turn up, and the customs people obviously thought there was drugs in the showers, so they opened the boxes and drilled actually into the shower heaters themselves to make sure there was no drugs in the heaters. And because it was a fix, about a year later we got all the showers back, but we got the showers back all with holes drilled in them, so they could check that there was no drugs inside. So yep, we ship everywhere, and we've got, because we ship a lot, we've got reasonable prices for shipping with most of the international couriers. We have another question from Strider 010. What age is it not worth repairing an electric shower? That's a really good question, because there's not an easy answer to that. An electric shower will normally go wrong, just in my experience, about 10 years old. You should get about 10 years, okay, sometimes 5, sometimes 15 before you get something going wrong. And it's certainly worth repairing once. I guess it depends on the shower. If you've paid 50 quid for the shower, it's lasted 5-7 years, then it's probably not worth repairing. But the issue is tiles. You've got the holes drilled in the tiles, and you've got to try and rematch the supply pipe work and the tiles and the holes in the tiles. So it's difficult to say, but I would certainly at 10 years always repair a shower, because you're pretty well guaranteed to get another 10 years or so, not 10 years, another 5 years or so out of it. But sometimes you're stuck because there's nothing you can do. If you've got, once again, expensive tiles in the wall, you really want to make sure that you can get something that will, if you can't get something that will fit the holes, you need to repair the shower. So that's where it's worthwhile always thinking about repairing. And once again, it depends on the condition of the shower, how much you've spent on it to begin with, and also some of the really expensive ones with a lot of electronics in them, that it's probably not worth repairing them once they get past 14 or 15 years old, because if you replace one of the expensive circuit boards, something else is sure to go wrong. So it's always worth repairing at 10 years, I would say, and once you get much beyond that, you're getting towards the end of the life of a normal shower. Here we go. Oh, questions are coming in now. Micro Battalion again. If I buy a shower from you, will your company come and install it? Well, yeah. If you want to ship to America, we'd be delighted to come and install it. In fact, so long as you pay our airfare, I'm pretty certain there'll be a queue at the door trying to take your shower, but we'd bring your shower personally to you. But
can I help you can install it?
Sorry?
Read the question again.
Yeah. All right. So I have to read the question again. If I buy a shower from your company, how can I install it? I thought, how can you install it? So that's Lucas correcting me. Well, I think the simple answer to that is, rather than have some of us come and fix it for you, is read the instructions. If you're interested in buying a shower from us, we can often send you the fitting instructions first, so you'll know what you're facing before you fit it. And without doubt, that the old sort of saying is, that if all else fails, read the instructions. Well, that's entirely wrong. Be very careful to read the instruction, to understand what you're doing before you start. And if you do that, it's a fairly simple job. It's a bit of plumbing, a bit of electrical work. If you're doing electrical work, it may be worth having somebody come in and just check it after you, or let them know what you're intending doing, so that they understand. Boring a couple of holes to put screws in that, and so it's not terribly difficult. Having said that, it's not difficult for me. I've been doing it since I was 15. There's the guy in the thumbnail, George. Yeah, there's the guy in the thumbnail, George. Yeah, that's me. Yeah, a little bit of history is I was an apprentice planner. I started my apprenticeship when I was 15. Worked until served my apprenticeship. Worked on some building sites for a while. I did quite a few other things in terms of plumbing. And my father, he had a plumbing business, or at least he worked for himself. So him and I joined together, and we worked very happily together for the next 20 odd years. He retired. I kept the business going for a few years after, and just needed a change, so sold the business. Did a few other things, drove a taxi, taught at the college, did some sales, but eventually decided that nobody, at the time, nobody was fixing showers, so I thought that was probably quite a good thing to do, is to try and fix showers. It was useful at the time because I was driving a taxi, so I had lots of times to read up and understand how showers fixed, and I thought that I might just manage to work away myself fixing showers. And really the business sort of snowballed. We ended up with 20, I think we had 22 people. We've got a few less than that at the moment, but we have 22 people now working here, and we send parts all over the world, and do our best to give it the best advice we possibly can. Michael Vitale, are you British? What do you think of Donald Trump? Difficult question. Yes, clearly, no, I'm not British, I'm actually Scottish, and so if anybody asks me, I am very clearly British, never English, but either British or Scottish. And what do I think of Donald Trump? I don't know. I just worry that somebody's maybe going to assassinate him at some point or other, but he's certainly causing a bit of trouble, so I just reserve judgment. I worry about his life a bit. Just to go back and try some other ones here. Have we got anything on Twitter, Lucas?
No. Check out the comments in the YouTube backend. Just scroll to the top. There's plenty more.
Where have we gone?
Go to the very top of those YouTube comments.
All right, YouTube comments, right. What is it? Cycle. Yeah, we've got Dave Davis recently that just 6 hours ago, and he said he's new to this and he's looking for help. He's got a Triton T80SI that's been recently running in a hot-cold cycle. Well, this could not be better, Dave, because probably what's causing the hot-cold cycle is the TCO. And what's happening is that usually when you get this hot-cold cycling, is there's not enough water getting through the shower to cool it, and that can be caused by a few things. And the first and easiest things to check is that the valve coming into your house is fully open, and the valve in the line to the shower is fully open. That what happens is that if this is restricted anyway, the flow into the shower is restricted in any way, the shower overheats, and this clicks in at the first stage. When the shower starts to cool down again, it goes back to heating up. The other thing to check is the shower head's clean. Often if that's dirty, that restricts the flow through the shower as well, and exactly the same issue, you get hot-cold cycling. The other thing that can go wrong is the actual flow valve inside the shower, but by far the most common thing is not enough water getting to the shower. You may have low pressure in your area, but the two easiest jobs to check is make sure the valve coming into the house is fully open, the valve in the line to the shower is fully open, because that's the normal cause. You often get somebody that's got too much pressure at the kitchen sink and tries to turn the valve coming into the house down, and then you find out that when our engineers go to the house to fix it, that all they've got to do is turn the valve that's under the sink fully on, and the shower's fixed. So hot-cold cycling, usually the valves, but not always. So we've got Mr. Grunter. My shower was working fine. All of a sudden, it is now running hot, even when on cold. Any idea? Well, it could probably be the same sort of thing, that not enough flow going through the shower. So you're having the shower turned down to fully cold. So there should be lots of flow going through the shower, keeping it cold. But if in fact the valves aren't properly open, then there's not enough flow going through. So once again, really the same as the previous question, check the valves coming into the house. It could be very easily the flow valve that's actually in the shower. If that's not metering the water properly, then you get exactly the same problem. But once again, check the valves coming into the house and in the line to the shower, because that's often the first cause of that. What else have we got? Alec Bruce, Alec Bruce here, he's saying, I'll read this out, that many thanks for your video, it saved me a lot of time and aggravation by only needing to swap out a solenoid coil. He had planned to install a whole new shower, so this is a massive time and frustration saved. That, solenoids are one of the things that go wrong with a shower. I've got one here. They go wrong with a shower quite regularly. I couldn't expect it, I might have a solenoid question. And often you've got to change the complete valve, but on occasion what really goes wrong mostly with a solenoid is just the coil, and in most showers you can replace just the coil. The way to test it is you need to test it for resistance. Normally you should be getting about 3.5 ohms, and anything less than that or anything fantastically more than that, then you've got a faulty coil, and it's usually easily replaced. We have a video on replacing these, on testing and replacing the coils, that, as I said, often you need to change the complete valve, so don't always think it's just the coil. Usually what happens is that the shower starts shutting down on its own. So you're in the shower and after 5 minutes it shuts off automatically. 10 minutes later it's okay again. And what you will find is that the time period that the shower stays on becomes less and less all the time, and so it's got a nice habit of just waiting till your hair's covered in soap and then the shower shuts down. So if it starts to if you start finding it shut down for no reason, then you need to test the coil. You need to test the coil when the shower's not working, when it's failed. We've got a video that will show you how to do that, because for sure it's on the way out, and guaranteed it will go wrong when you're ready to go out on a Friday night or a Saturday night, or when your hair's covered in soap. Another one.
Let's go back to the chat for a second.
In the chat, there we go. Alright, so, well, I see that Lucas has left a link for how to check the solenoid on the link. Yeah, anything else that's coming here? There you go. So Lucas has got the link to the video. The link to the video is now on chat, so you can go straight to it if you click on the link. Strider 101's asked how long it takes if we get an email inquiry. How long does it take to answer? Well, I'll read it. If you get an email inquiry about a shower part, how long does it take for you to reply? Minutes sometimes, and in other times a couple of days. That we tend to try and answer everything the same day, but it really just depends on the volume of work, the number of phone calls we get. So there's no set rule. I think that our objective is to never let it get beyond 2 days, 2 working days. Occasionally we fail at that, and often, if the question comes in mid to late afternoon, all our previous emails and question and answer, we've got a question and answer section. All of our emails and questions and answers will be up to date by then. Monday's probably our most difficult day because we've got the questions that come on over the weekend. Strangely enough, we notice that on a Monday, if it's been a wet, miserable weekend, that's the weekend that we get the most inquiries. So if it's been a wet and miserable weekend and you're waiting for an answer on Monday, it may just be Tuesday morning before you get your answer.
Probably do a few more comments and then we finish up.
We're intending to finish up at 6, so I'll see if I can pick another 1 or 2 just to answer here. How are we doing here? go to, I have to go to another page here. Yes, we've got Ada, well, I'll need to spell this name because I can't pronounce it, Hykyaj, so not terribly sure how to pronounce that, who has a Triton T90 SI. A few months back they had the temperature set to number 5, and now it's on number 7. And so to cut the question down quite a bit here, that you will find that in the winter time you need to have your shower set slightly hotter, and in the summertime slightly cooler in terms of the numbers you normally use. So an electric shower, what's happening is that it's the temperature of the water coming into your house. So in the summertime you maybe get the water temperature coming in at say 15 degrees C. You'll normally shower at around 40 degrees C. So what you're looking at is a temperature rise of about 25 degrees to get the right temperature, you know, what's comfortable for you in the summer. But in the winter time the water's coming in at 5 degrees, so the shower's got to work much harder to get that water to heat up. And the way you do that is you turn the temperature up, and so as the temperature goes up, the water actually moves through the shower slightly slower, and as it goes through the shower slower, it therefore can pick up more temperature. So it's just a case of, if you can imagine a heating element, the water passing across the heating element, if it passes across it fairly quickly, in the summertime it can do that because it's quite warm anyway, it passes across it fairly quickly and you get quite a good pressure. In the winter time, then it's got to pass across fairly slowly so that it can pick up more temperature. And I guess that's why everybody finds that, oh, why am I having to adjust it? Why am I having to adjust the temperature? Well, the reason is because the temperature of the water coming into the house has changed. I think that's actually us at the back of 6 o'clock. Is there anything else coming in?
One more in the chat.
One more in the chat. We'll do this last chat one and see where we are with that. Oh, thank you for telling me. He's keen. If he orders a shower now, when will it arrive in the West Coast? I really need to. I'm going to have to body swerve that one, and that's their guys down in packing. However, if that's a serious inquiry and you're keen to have one, you have to watch first of all, because the voltage is different in many cases in America. A lot of America work off 110 volts. We're 220, 240 volts here. But if it's one that we have in stock, it will be dispatched the same day. Usually, if you order before 3. It'll go out the same day. In fact, even if you order a bit after 3, it can probably go out the same day. But how long it'll take to the west coast of America, I don't know. I offered before, but I'd be very happy to bring it if you pay my airfare. And so yeah, I guess that's it. So I'd like to thank everyone that's sent us a question for their input and for your questions. If you like, you could leave us some comments or a thumbs up. That we're going to do the highlights of this video on Facebook, so you'll see the better bits apparently on Facebook. If you want to keep up with our broadcasts, just check in with our Facebook page and our Twitter feed as regularly as you can. What we would also like is if you have any technical comments about the sound quality, the picture quality, just in general about our videos, then we would really appreciate having these, because that's the only way we're going to be able to make this better. And so next time, what we're going to talk about is this. I don't know if you know what it is, but I'm going to explain what it is and what it does, and I hope you'll be interested to find out this is it, an important part of a shower. So I'd like to thank once again everybody for tuning in. And I'd also like to thank Lucas for keeping me right in the background, doing the technical stuff in the background. And so there we go. Thank you, and good night. Have a pleasant evening.